Hi, I'm Kelly Williamson with the Plant-Based Kitchen, and today I want to welcome Wanda White with the Humane Society of the United States. Welcome, Wanda, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Kelly, for the opportunity.
Thank you. So everybody, you are joining the Plant-Based Cooking Summit, where we're going to talk about tips, tricks, journeys, information, all types of things to sustain a healthy lifestyle. So let's go ahead and get started. So Wanda, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us what you've been doing and all about your companies, etc.?
Oh, thank you, Kelly. Yes, I've had an exciting few years with this. I am Chef Wanda White. I am a certified executive pastry chef, classically trained. And my journey started about 5 years ago at the University of North Texas, actually. I was the chef that opened the first all-vegan dining hall, as far as we know, in the United States and maybe in the world, but we know in the United States. And so with that being said, I worked there almost 4 years, and I had the opportunity to come and work with the Humane Society of the United States. And what that entailed, at first I started doing consulting work with them, going into the big kitchens, the hotels and convention centers, working with the chefs and making sure that all of the ingredients that we were going to be using at this particular event was all plant-based. And so I did that for about a year, and then they decided to hire a full-time chef, and I applied, and they did their due diligence, and here I am today.
That's wonderful. So tell us a little bit more about the Humane Society. I'd love to hear more about what it all entails.
Well, when we go out, the Humane Society, basically, I'm in what we call the Farm Animal Protection Campaign, and what that basically means, and we get a lot of questions about, oh, you mean you cook cats and dogs? And, we get all kinds of crazy things, and we just kind of laugh it off. But, people don't understand how is the Humane Society connected with the food. And so what we're about in the campaign that I'm in is the animals that we actually put on our plates, the pork and the beef and the chickens. That is what we are about. And so I was actually hired to, we started on this journey, Ken and I, he's worked with me at UNT, and now he's with Humane Society. We actually started in 2015, in January of 2015, I went with him, and we did our first training at Harvard University.
Oh, wow. That
was our very first training. And we didn't know at the time what we were really doing and getting into. And as this journey has progressed, we have been to about 50 venues, including hospitals, universities. I'm here right now at SeaWorld working with them. We've been to the military bases. And so we go in, and actually we have a 2-day training. And we created this training manual, and it has recipes in it for plant-based. Well, when we did the one at Harvard, Ken was talking with them, and they had what we call the food forward experience, where we get decision makers, about 50 in a room. We feed them lunch, and we tell them what the Humane Society has to offer, the different sections of what we have to offer to help them to know about putting more plants on the plate. And so Chef Martin from Harvard, he came to Ken and he said, I would love to do this, but I don't know how to even start. Where do you get the recipes from? And he said, do you have a program? Well, at the time, Ken didn't have a program, and I was still at UNT, and he laughed, and we laugh about it now, but he gets on the phone and he says, Chef Wanda, I need your help. I just told Chef Martin at Harvard University that we have a 2-day training, and we don't, so that I need you to help me. And so we quickly gathered up and did this poor little recipe book. I still have it, and I look at it, and it's kind of it's kind of one of those things you want to cherish because it was our first one. But when you look at it, and it's like, man, this is horrible. But you know what? From that day forward, we stepped into something that I don't think that any of us ever even dreamed about how big this thing would get. And like I said, we've been in about 50 venues, and we have trained over 1,000 chefs / dietitians / culinarians in this past 2 years that we've been doing this.
Wow. Wow, that is amazing. I love hearing about the program because just kind of like what you were talking about, when you hear Humane Society, you automatically think of the adoptions and, you know, the places that you can go and all those. But to have this complete other arm of the Humane Society is great.
It is. And, you know, at the time, I didn't even dream that, you know, what we were doing could be as popular as it was. When I opened up that first all-vegan dining hall at the University of North Texas, it was new. Mm-hmm. And so we didn't know at the time. We had no idea if it would work or it wouldn't work. And so, you know, we put our best foot forward. That first, it was a dining hall that UNT was getting ready to close. The students had voiced their opinion, and they wanted healthier options, and even voiced their opinion that they would like to have a vegan dining hall. In all the dining halls, we had 5 there at UNT, all of the dining halls had a vegan section, but, you know, it was okay at best. And so that's not what you really think about when you think about vegan food. And when they told me that I was going to do this, first of all, I'm not a vegan. And at that time, I didn't know anything about being a vegan. I didn't even want to be a vegan. I just didn't, you know, because I didn't know. Because that vegan word to me was so negative at the time. It was always, oh, vegan food, this, and that's all I ever knew. So when they asked me to do this, I decided that I would get on and do some research. And truly, when I got on and started reading what being a vegan was about, it was like a light bulb came on, and it was simply, the simple part of it to me that I can describe to you was like leaving the animal product out and not using it or replacing it with something that's plant-based. That's how simple it became to me. So with that, when that light bulb turned on and I realized that's really what it's about, then I understood it, and I have been a chef for 35 years, and I had to just take myself and say, you're a chef for 30-something years, you can do this. You know how to cook. And that's where the journey began, and that has taken me into some great experiences that I'm so amazed at what happened. With that dining hall was the dining hall that we were getting ready to close. And in that first month or two, we saw the numbers start going up. We had $163,000 worth of free press. Everybody got on the bandwagon. ABC, NBC, everybody was writing about one quote from one of the stations said, Texas calf goes vegan calf or something like that. And I mean, it was like, you know, it was so funny, but we had all kinds of publicity, and it was great. And so, but everybody was holding their breath if you will, that, well, you know, we've seen the numbers go up the first month or so. Let's just see. Well, in the almost 4 years that I was there, we started out with just 500 swipes a day. And whenever I left there after 4 years, it was up to 1,700 swipes a day. We had people coming from everywhere. I mean, I remember one evening I was getting ready to leave. There was a lady that was, was coming from Canada, and she had been touring the country, and she had heard about the cafeteria. And she calls me at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and they get me. I was actually getting ready to walk out the door, and they came and said, Chef, you have a phone call. So I took it, and she was telling me her story, and I stayed and met the lady. And she said, this is just wonderful what you're doing. We had professors that was writing the president of the school, talking about how great the food was. And so, you know, it was a very, very big success.
It is wonderful. Love to hear that. So you were talking about a little bit more of your journey. So you said, you know, you were a chef for so many years and then discovered, you know, going into these programs and stuff, being plant-based or vegan. So tell us a little bit more about your journey.
Well, I don't know if I mentioned it the first, 'cause I told you I'm a talker and I get excited about this, but I am a certified executive pastry chef, classically trained. Mm-hmm. And so all I knew all of my life was working with butter, eggs, cream, and my boss, I laugh at him because when we're together and he does his presentation, he says, you know, the first thing that Chef Wanda asked me was, Ken, how am I going to make cake without butter and eggs? And truly that was because the pastries have been my love. Even though I know how to cook, the kitchen is basically my love, and I finally figured that part out. But the pastries, I have always been told, I had the opportunity to go to Paris, France and study. You know, they use butter and cream like crazy. I went up to the Culinary Institute of America and studied. And so, you know, that's all I've been taught all my life, is that you need this to make good cakes and cookies and all. So it was one of those things that I wanted it to be good. I wanted to make sure that it was a success, whatever I was doing. I've always taken everything to heart and wanted it to be successful. And so this was no different, especially with the fact that, you know, people were not sure that it could even work. And I told somebody one day, I said, they put me on the post, and believe me, it's going to work. And so I literally poured myself into that kitchen, and I would take recipes and tweak them and test them and make sure, you know, that if I liked them, then I would serve them. There was times that we had some misses and we'd throw it in the trash, you know, and so, but that's what research and development is all about. So, you know, when we started going around, and I was worried too at the beginning, because my answer to Ken about going to Harvard was, I'm not going to Harvard. Those people are smarter than me. I mean, I never even imagined that I would be in Harvard. And he said, oh, no, they're not, and you're going. And so I you know, labored over the fact, are these recipes too easy for people? But you know what we found is when we got into these kitchens, and every day that I go into these kitchens, when the chefs are executing them, and we go in with some people that really don't know anything about being plant-based cooking, and some of them, I'll be honest with you, they don't even care. They just wish we would go away. But you know what? What we have found every time is, and most of the time it's a 2-day training, and what we have found is that after the first day, they come to us and say, this food is good. And then the second day, they're actually hugging us and saying, thank you. We didn't know that it could be so easy to do, and we didn't know it'd be so good to do. Because going back to my statement at the very beginning, all people have in their minds, most people that are not plant-based and have never had that food, that is bad food. I had to do an interview when I first started with the Humane Society, and I did my first consulting down in Daytona Beach, Florida. The chef didn't want us there. He was adamant. I mean, he showed it in every way. And so there was a reporter that wanted to talk about the Humane Society coming to this Daytona Beach and bringing this vegan food in there. And the chef said, well, you need to go talk to her. Well, I didn't know. I was a consultant. I wasn't hired full-time. I didn't know I wasn't supposed to talk to a reporter, and I did. But the thing that he starts off bashing, oh, this vegan food, this, and I put my hand up and I said, wait a minute, sir, excuse me. I said, if you take that vegan word out and call it good food, that's what I'm about. That's all I'm about. I said, my food that I'm doing is not bad. And I said, in fact, I'd like for you to hang around and try some of it, because we'll have some in a little bit. I'd like for you to try. And, you know, he's like, oh, no, I'm not eating vegan food. And that was okay, but he actually quoted me on taking that vegan word out and calling it good food. And that's what I've always had. That's what I speak about, and that's what I am truly sold out on, that vegan food, plant-based, whichever name you want to call it. We try to coin the phrase plant-based because of that negative connotation. Whatever you want to call it, it's just good food.
I agree with that. I fully agree with that.
Yeah.
That is wonderful. Love it. I love the journey and just going in and like you're talking about, you go through all your recipes, you test them, all those type of things. So how many pastries, so you're saying that you're a pastry, you love that part of it. How many pastry recipes do you have that are plant-based now?
Oh, I would say we probably have about 50 to 75 that I did out at UNT. And it was so funny out here at SeaWorld this week. The chef, he said, this is so hard to pick from. I don't know what to pick from because everything sounds so good. And he said, I can't do them all. And I said, okay. I said, well, let's just do a few. And so that's what we did. And I'm telling you, they were ecstatic today when we presented to their team, their executive team. They were ecstatic about what we had done. And as far as what I could tell from the chef this afternoon, is that they're immediately going to be implementing this into the San Diego SeaWorld. So it's a really, really great feeling to know that you have made a difference in the world that we are in. Because, you know, the disease, and I taught the baking program at the Art Institute of Dallas for 6 years. And I was all about doing fresh things back then, and I'm still about that. You know, I don't understand the box mix thing. I mean, to me, you still got to put eggs in it, and you still got to do this stuff. So why don't you just go ahead and get some real flour and just do the real thing? And so I don't understand. And one lady, I had my shop one time, and a lady came in, and she said, "Your cake tastes different." And I said, "Well, is it different good or bad?" Or she said, "Well, no, it just tastes different." And I said, "Well, let me ask you a question." I said, "Do you use box cake mixes, or you used to have that?" "Oh, yes." And I said, "And that's the reason." Because, you know, Kelly, most people nowadays in our world, and I think cooking is becoming a lost art, most people in our world nowadays, all they know is box cake mix. And so I told her, I said, well, I said, and that's just what I said to you, I said to her, and I said, it is going to taste different because it is fresh. I said, if you'll go look at the box of your cake mix and read that, before you ever get to the flour, there's several chemical names in there. And I said, what do you think those chemicals are about? They're about stabilizing. They're about, this cake mix, you could probably say that it's probably been on the shelf for 2 years, and it's probably been processed for another year. So how do you think that could stay on the shelf and be good if it's not something going on with that? And with that being said, I think that our world, because of all of the easy things that we've gotten into, we've gotten away from the real food, is why we have heart disease and diabetes and you know, all these cancer, everything running rapid with our world, is the fact that we have gotten away from what the real food is about and gotten into the stuff that makes life easy, and, you know, just open up a box and throw it in there and you'll be good. So
I agree. I fully agree with that. I've actually heard and seen statistics out there that they're saying that children up to the age of 19 now don't have the cooking skills. So you're talking about the lost art of cooking, because a lot of it is they've either, you know, single parents, or they've got dual parents that are both working. And so everything is a, you know, kind of cash and carry. So it could be like whatever, Kentucky Fried Chicken, whatever's available that's on the way home to be able to feed the family, which is scary.
And it is, and it's so true, and it's sad to me, you know. And because I love cooking, and in fact, I have 2 daughters, and one of them likes to cook a little bit. The other one, she has a husband that is a chef. He's actually going to, so he
Nice.
cooks for her now, and she loves it. But you know, the thing is that when we grew up, my mother cooked every night for us. I was 6 years old before I ever even knew what a restaurant was about. And, you know, we were around the dinner table talking and having that camaraderie, and so many things without that cooking is missing in our world. And so it's and I'm an advocate to bring it back, and I tell people, you don't have to make pancakes out of a box. Here's a good recipe. Make you some good pancakes with this recipe. So
I agree. I love that. You know, you always see those the old shows and stuff about, you know, where you're a child and you're sitting there with the Italian grandma, or you're with your grandmother or with your mom and stuff, and you're stirring the chocolate chip cookies and all those type of things. I agree. It just seems to be a lost art, which is sad because it's fun.
Yes, it is. Yeah. And, you know, and the freshness of what we're doing, I mean, the fresh vegetables. And I was at a Texas Chefs Association meeting not too long ago, and we had a group of ladies from Louisville Independent School District was there, and they've started planting these gardens out at the school, and then they have a night where the parents can come in and they give them these vegetables. And I was talking to one of the ladies that's over it, and she said, you know, Chef Wanda, she said, we would love for you to come on one of those nights and show them how to cook, because most people don't know how to cook anything. She said they don't know what fresh vegetables is about. It's either canned or it's frozen. Yep. And, you know, all you do is, they said, we just throw that in the microwave. How do you cook this stuff? And so, you know, that is that's daunting words to me. When you have parents that don't even know how to cook squash or fresh broccoli, you know, it just, I'd like to save the world is what I'd like to do.
Well, it sounds like you are one person at a time, though. That's wonderful. Yeah. So tips and tricks. What are some of your like 3 favorite tips and tricks that you like to help with like sustaining a healthy lifestyle or cooking?
Okay, I was thinking about this the other day because we were in Fargo, North Dakota last week, and I love to do this trick with the butternut squash, and everybody out there knows that butternut squash is one of those vegetables that's a little bit of a challenge.
Yep.
I mean, it's hard.
Yep.
If you never cut butternut squash, it's a tough deal. And then if you need, say if you're in a kitchen and you need a lot of it, then it's a big challenge. And a lot of people, in fact, I had a guy at one of our meetings out at UCLA, and when I was talking about this butternut squash and how easy I'm going to show you how easy it is to do butternut squash. He said, "Thank God, because I have 2 in my refrigerator, and my wife every night asks me, when are we going to cook that butternut squash?" And he said, "I just keep putting it on because I don't want to mess with it." And so the tip is to take the butternut squash whole. You don't cut the ends off. You don't cut it in half. Leave it whole. Rub a little bit of vegetable oil or olive oil. Put it in a pan that has a little bit of water, and it gives it that steam effect. Roast it for 15 minutes on each side, 30 minutes total. When you bring that out, let it cool a few minutes so you can handle it. You can take a knife and you can cut down on each end. It comes right off, and you can and I usually cut it in half because some of them are usually big, and cut it in half and peel it right down like you would do a cantaloupe or watermelon or whatever. It's so easy. And at that point, you haven't overcooked it, and you can keep the integrity. And I have this quinoa, butternut squash, roasted pecans, and dried cranberries that I do with this recipe. And you can cut that, and you can saute it up with some good herbs and some fresh ginger, whatever you want, a good seasoning, and toss that in there, and you have little cubes, and not everything's mushy. And if you want to do soup with that, then you can just cut it up, put it into your pot with some good vegetable broth, and once it gets done, just puree that up, and you got some good soup. So that's probably one of my favorite tips that we do. We're actually have introduced into our training this year. We make cheese from potatoes and carrots. It's so good. You put just a little bit of vegetable oil. I have a recipe for it, and it takes garlic powder, onion powder, a little bit of salt and pepper, obviously, and nutritional yeast, a half cup of nutritional yeast. Excuse me. And you boil your potatoes and carrots together, and you get them till they're done. Drain them, and you use a half a cup of water and with the oil, and you pour that back in. Put it in a food processor. It's better to do in a blender. The food processors doesn't blend it as puree like a cheese should be. So you put it in that blender, and I'm telling you, it's the best cheese. It makes the best nachos, and you can put Rotel into it. We actually introduced it when we were at SeaWorld. We introduced it to SeaWorld has the Sesame Place Park up in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. The guys were concerned. They wanted to do a macaroni and cheese, but because they have so many children, and the allergy is a big concern. So we introduced them to this, and they were ecstatic about it. And they said, we are going to be using this come March when springtime comes and our new season starts. So they've been practicing it. They've emailed us, and so, that's another good one. And it doesn't have any allergies. It's allergy friendly, no dairy in it. And so it's just these little things. It's just good. And if you would have told me that I would have been making cheese 5 years ago with potatoes and carrots, I would have laughed at you and said, no way. Yep. But that's another good one, because it meets a need. Yep. And that's what I love about what we're doing, that it meets the need. Allergies are a big deal.
I agree with that.
And so then I have one more it's a fun one, and we do the aquafaba. I don't know if you've heard of that.
I do.
But it's with chickpea juice,
yep.
And you whip it up. And there's so many things that you can do with that chickpea juice. And people are always, in fact, in Fargo, North Dakota, nobody had heard about it. And one guy said, I'm not eating chickpea juice. That probably tastes terrible. I said, come on, be a good sport. And I handed him a spoon, and I had some on it. And he took a minute taste. And I just looked at him, and he looked at me, and he said, you're kidding me. And I said, no. I said, what do you think? He said, you're kidding me. He said, this is not chickpea juice. You've done something else to it. And I said, oh, did I do some voodoo to it or something? So, and he just started laughing. He said, can I have another spoon of it? And so, you know, people are very amazed with that. But there's so many things you can do with that. And again, you know, for people that that want to have a meringue pie, you can actually use that for meringue pie. Yep. And I just found a recipe that you can make homemade marshmallows with it, which when I get slowed down, I'm actually going to do that. Hopefully in April, I'll have a few weeks to be at home and test some of these things. But I've been thinking about doing homemade marshmallows because I love them. As a pastry chef, you know, I can do that. But there's certain things that you can't use in being plant-based. And so I just found the recipe for homemade marshmallows with the aquafaba. So I'm going to be testing that. And that's probably going to be another one of my little jewels.
That's wonderful. So have you used aquafaba? So I know that chickpeas and stuff, you can do aquafaba. Have you done any other beans as far as making any of the aquafaba out of them?
We have tried that. We used the juice from kidney beans and black beans in one training, and they say you can do it, but they didn't really work as well. Okay. They didn't fluff up, and they kind of deflated really fast. And so I've tried some of them, but I haven't been successful with those yet.
Yeah, because I hear out there that it's, you know, any bean juice you can use and stuff, but what I really see is the chickpea. So
yeah, and I've tried it. I've tried it with several of the beans, and they didn't work as well as the chickpea juice.
Okay.
Yes.
Have you ever tried the black-eyed pea?
I haven't tried the black-eyed pea juice, but I can tell you out at UNT we had one roasted bean every day, some kind of bean, peas, whatever, and I roasted the black-eyed peas, and I love those. We roasted chickpeas, and so, you know, it's so amazing to me, and I tell people all the time, it's amazing what you can do with these vegetables. It is just totally amazing. And I used to tell them at UNT, they'd come to me and say, Chef, we're out of spinach. I said, okay, do we have Swiss chard? Yep. Let's change it out. I said, it's not like we're taking a round steak and swapping it out for a filet mignon. I said, it's vegetables, and that's what the beauty of what we're doing. It's just vegetables, and you can take those and put some good seasoning into them and make them wonderful.
I agree. So what's your most favorite recipe, like your favorite go-to recipe, and then what's some of the tips and tricks that you use and stuff to make it right every time?
My favorite recipe, and anybody will tell you from any of the trainings that we have done, is the eggplant parmesan without the parm. I love eggplant. I have always liked eggplant, and I figured out a way to make eggplant parmesan be plant-based, and it's very, very good. So what I do with that, and I had one chef tell me one time, you can't do that. That's not going to work. And I said, okay, and when somebody tells me I can't do something that's not going to work, you better believe it's going to work, because I'm going to show them it can be done. And so I simply soak I like it peeled, and I cut it into slices, or you can do planks out of it. I've done where we can do plate presentations and do the stacks on it. So, whatever how you want to cut that, I soak it about 10 minutes in cold water. In that way, that with salt, and it pulls out that bitterness out of it. And so you just take it and do a standard breading procedure, which is basically, and I always make sure that it has salt on it and has good seasoning. Whether you want to put garlic into it, I like the Tony Chachere's. I put some of that in there to kick up that little flavor. So, but the thing that I tell people the most about everything that you do is that people want flavor in your food. They don't want to eat something doesn't have salt and doesn't have flavor. So the standard breading procedure is basically the flour. You will take it out of the water, dip it into the flour, coat it both sides. You're going to dip it into soy milk or almond milk, whichever one, to keep it plant-based. Yep. And then I dip it into panko. And with the panko, I usually take some of the Daya mozzarella cheese and I cut it up a little bit. And I put some fresh herbs like oregano, basil, put some fresh herbs in there. So toss that around, and I coat both sides again of the eggplant, and we put it on a tray. And you know, depending on when we're going to use it, I will actually refrigerate it till we get ready to use it. and then you bring it out and deep fry it. Now, when we were in Fargo, they didn't want anything deep fried. They had these wonderful, wonderful ovens that they just put in. This is a brand new facility. It was beautiful. And it actually, you could turn it on a different setting, and it actually cooked it like it was deep fried. And so it turned out very well. It was very good. A lot of people don't want to do the deep frying thing, and I understand that. Of course, to me, deep fried is I like it a little bit better. But I'm learning to eat a little healthier, and really and truly, the eggplant was not bad being cooked like that. But that's all it is to it, and it's just that simple, An eggplant goes a long ways. One eggplant can give you lots of pieces, and that's what I like about, too, what we're doing is because a lot of the stuff that we do, it goes a long ways, and you can feed a lot of people for a little bit of money on doing plant-based.
I agree. So focusing on, your 2-day classes and stuff, because you've trained over 1,000 chefs, which is phenomenal, and nutritionists and everybody else. So your 2 days, how does that kind of look like? What is that, like a layout of the 2 days? And then if somebody was interested in doing, attending those classes, how would they do that?
Okay, so what we do, we have what we call food coordinators in most of the states, and they go out and they talk with, and I'm just going to use an example of, just say UCLA. We were there back last summer, and we're going back again. I see it on my calendar. And so what happens is our food coordinator in Los Angeles, she talked with them. We actually, when I was out there, Ken, my boss, and the food coordinator, we all actually got together and went and met with the chef. We talked to him about how the 2-day program operated, and that's how it gets started, with them going and making it. And plus, I meet people all the time, and I turn it over to my boss and say, you want to talk with them because they're interested. Excuse me. And so when we actually get to the day of the training, we have several calls before that, and we actually get to the day of training. We have breakfast, lunch, dinner, and desserts, and appetizers in between that. Excuse me just a moment. So we set up the training schedule. The first day of the training schedule, we have everybody come about 7:15. They have a little light breakfast, and then we have a couple of presentations, and we get started around 9 o'clock in the kitchen usually. And so we put the trainees, we put them in groups of 2, and we usually try to limit it about 20 to 24 people at that point. Yep. And each group gets 2 recipes. I make sure that they have, if it's like the first day, we do soup, salad, sandwiches. And so I usually try to make sure if they get a salad that they'll have some kind of sandwich to do, make it a little challenging. So that first day, what we make that first day is what we have for lunch.
Nice.
And so then we have lunch. And then we come, usually about 12. And what I have them do is once we finish, we take it out about 11:30, put it out on the table. And I have each group go around and talk about what recipes they actually were involved in. Mm-hmm. Then we have the lunch. And at 1 o'clock, we come back. And on that first day, we do breakfast. And it consists of, I do demos on how to do fresh homemade biscuits. We have gravies. We have the tofu scramble. Talk about that. And some muffins and some other things, homemade pancakes and waffle mix. Yeah.
Sounds wonderful.
And so what we make that day, that afternoon, we save what we can and use it the next morning for breakfast. You have a mint? Oh. Sorry. It's kind of hot in here.
Climate changes.
Yeah. Excuse me.
Talking about you're using everything for the breakfast the next day.
Yeah, so everything that we do, all the food that we make, we actually eat. So the next day, we come in again, break up into 2s, and we have like pasta, rice, and grains. We do some international dishes. It's kind of like comfort food at this point.
Sounds wonderful.
And so then everything that we do, we will have that for lunch. And then we come back and we have desserts and appetizers.
Wonderful. It sounds like a phenomenal program. It sounds like a lot of fun.
It is. And that's what I tell people. I can't believe that they actually pay me to come and have fun, because that's what it's all about. It really is. Yeah.
I love it. I love everything.
The thing that I think even more than having the fun part, it's what we're doing is making such an impact on not only people's lives, but the animals and our planet. And I think really and truly that that's what it's really all about.
I agree.
Is the impact that we make.
I admire you, and I admire you exactly what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. So is there anything else that you'd like to be able to share with everybody today?
The thing that I probably want to impress upon people, because I don't know what audience you're capturing. I don't know if you're capturing people that are vegan. And what we tell people, we're not out to take anything away from you, because a lot of people will say, and truly believe it or not, we have been into a few hospitals where even the doctors are saying, why are y'all taking our meat away?
True.
We're not out to. We know people at the Humane Society, we know people are not we're not trying to tell you don't eat meat. We're not trying to take that away from you. But what we are doing, we're actually offering you something more. And that's what we want to get across to people, is that we're not there to take away. We're not there. And we will have people go around and ask them, what's your favorite food? And, they think it's funny, but they'll stand up, especially the guys, oh, I like a big T-bone steak, that kind of thing. And that's fine, and we say we're not here to take away your T-bone steak.
True. But
we're here to offer you something, a different lifestyle and a little healthier items, and we encourage people to take one day a week, the Meatless Monday or Lean and Green Tuesday, whatever you want to call it. Take one day a week and just cut back on that stuff. And before you know it, and I said at the very beginning that I'm not a vegan, but I can tell you that 5 years ago, I wouldn't even would be able to make the statement, but today I can tell you that I've come a long ways with it. I'm getting where I don't want to eat meat. It just is not appealing to me. And I would rather have vegetables. I would rather make me something that's appetizing as to have just a piece of meat on my plate. So wherever you're at with plant-based, vegan, whatever you want to call it, wherever you're at in your life with that, just consider, the health benefits, the benefits, period. Yep. And if you consider that, then start off with just having a salad or having some good vegetables for lunch one day a week. Mm-hmm. And before you know it, you're going to say, oh, I don't even care about having meat for dinner.